This DIY is so much fun, but I'm going to recommend, if you're going to do this project, go get white pipe cleaners as well as white beads. You will spend a lot of time trying to cover up those colors. So what you're going to need are some of these kid beads. You could do the colored ones. You can pick all of this up from Dollar Tree, but if you want to spend less time trying to get rid of the color that's on there, this will work even better. Add about 23 beads to 25 beads on each pipe cleaner, and you're going to need 8 to 10 pipe cleaners depending on how thick you want your little faux corn to look. On one of the ends, go ahead and twirl all of the ends together to create a little nub, and once you've got those all twisted around nice and tight, you're then going to hold it at the nub pointing up and star out all of the different pipe cleaners. Then start to push down the pipe cleaners around and over that little nub, pushing all of the beads to that end where you just knotted it up, and then at the top start to twist it and start to add more of that pressure in there at that other end to start twisting them down into place to create a second nub. Once you've got that second nub in place, go ahead and open them up, twist it down underneath, and then push around the sides of those other pieces of long bead strands. Now you can see at this point it's really colorful, which is super fun if you're doing this for a kid's craft, but if you want it to look more farmhouse, you're going to have to take it outside and you're going to have to paint it. I spray painted mine at first to see how well the coverage would be, and then I found that the pipe cleaners just weren't covering as well as I would like them to because of the fiber and the fabric. The spray paint just wasn't adhering to it. So I came back in and I'm using some of my chalk paint to do that. So I will again recommend, if you're going to do this project, get white pipe cleaners and get white beads, and you'll save yourself a ton of time, and then this project is super easy. If not, the painting process will take a little bit longer. So I just want to give you all the truth. I found this cute inspiration on Pinterest a long time ago, and I wanted to make sure that you understand and know that if you do this, go with the white ones. It'll save you a ton of time. At this point, I took some of this grass hula skirt and I cut off a piece. I'm folding it in half, I'm twisting the end, and I'm going to tie a knot. That's because this is going to become the husk part of the corn. We are going to just tie a knot and we're going to glue that onto the top of the two corns, which at this point, it looks so cute. Once I brought in some of that dry brush distressing on the corn to bring forth the little nubs from those beads, it just looks like a piece of corn, and it's such a cute project. This is super cost efficient. You can make a ton of them for hardly any money. Now I added that corn husk up at the top, and now I'm going to add on a really big bow, and it just is so cute for the fall season. I picked up this plastic cup from the kitchen section at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be using this wood spool that I pick up from Hobby Lobby. We're starting with a really dark orange. It's almost a chocolatey brown, dare I say it, kind of like a poop brown. That's a terrible thing to say on my channel. We're going to go with a dark orange. I'm so sorry. Anyway, I'm going to paint the whole thing this base color, and the reason why is we're going to go from darkest to lightest to create a lot of texture. Just wait. The finished result is going to be so cool. So I'm going to add in some flour, that's right, baking flour that I use in the kitchen, and this is going to thicken up that paint, and I'm going to add in a pumpkin orange. I'm going to get this nice thick clumpy paint, and I'm going to cake that all over the cup. This is going to help it not look like a cup, and it's going to start to get all those little nodules and texture you would see on those Cinderella pumpkins, the ones that have a lot of bumps all over them. I'm going to just cake that all over, and I'm going to let it air dry because using a heat gun will cause your pumpkin cups to shrink and have all kinds of shriveling problems. It's better to let it air dry. Then I'm going to add in some white, and I'm going to continue to add on layers of lighter colors, moving my way up. Every time I finish a layer, I then add some more white, and then I put on that color. I did about 4 different colors, and all it really is just letting the paint dry. I put it in front of a fan in my craft room, and every time it's dry, I just add the next layer. To create the stem at the top, I'm going to use my hot glue gun and poke some holes down into the cup. The tip is going to melt a hole, and then that way the glue can go in through the hole, bind on the inside of the cup, and connect itself to the spool on top. That's going to help it keep it from popping off over time. Now go ahead and add glue inside of your spool, and then put that right on top of the cup. And for one of the cups, I'm going to double them up so it has a really tall stem. You could also just use sticks. If you don't have these spools, that could be really cute too. Now, to finish the security of this spool not falling off, I flipped it over where that hole was and added some more glue, so it's got that hold on the top, hold on the bottom, and it's really connecting it together. Then I added on some greenery because I thought that would be really pretty, and I'm going to add on a vintage ribbon. This ribbon I get from the Dollar Tree. I got it during the fall season. I'm going to use my heat gun to help it shrink and shrivel up so it has that vintage ribbon look to it. And then I'm going to simply tie some bows, and I'm going to put a bow on each one of these pumpkins. These are so easy to make, and I think the pack of cups has 6 or 8. I can't remember inside of the container that you pick up from the Dollar Tree in the kitchen section. It's such a great deal to make these pumpkins, and it's just basically using a whole bunch of scraps I have around my craft room and some flour from the kitchen. So cute to put on a stack of books, to put on a little table next to the side of your couch, or even in the kitchen or a bathroom. Aren't they so adorable? And all it is using cups. This sign is going to be so cost friendly to recreate. We're going to just take one of these long signs from the Dollar Tree, and we're going to pop off this fun little arch part that says Happy Holidays. I will keep that for another project later on down the road, but I only want to get to the base of this sign. I'm also going to pop off the ribbons and the staple, and then once I'm done getting all that off, I'm going to go ahead and take some of my putty, and I'm going to fill in those holes from the staples. When they punch into these boards, it can cause a little bit of a divot. So I'm going to go ahead and just fill that in and sand it so it's nice and smooth on the same surface, because we are going to be painting this whole thing black. Now you could paint it whatever color you want, but I went with black because I really love black during the fall season. I just think it looks so pretty with all of the fall colors. I don't know, it gives it more of a rich, deep tone. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just what I like. So you can paint any color you want, but after I got it all dry, I went ahead and used my ruler and I sketched on the words, "The Simple Life." After a while, friends, we start to just wear ourselves out, and sometimes it's okay to just have a simple day. And so I just wanted to remind myself and my family that we don't have to run every second. It's okay to slow down. I think the Sabbath day is always my favorite day of the whole week, because I just love that time to slow down and to just really focus on the things that calm my spirit. Once it was all dried, I sanded the corners, and then on the back side I flipped it over and then took some of that gingham fabric and covered the back so it has a nice clean finish. And then I took another strip and tied it onto the side of the sign. I'm going to tie it with 2 knots or 2 ties to make a knot, and then I'm going to do a dovetail cut on the ends and tuck in some of this wheat. I just think that this is so cute, and how it turned out tucking these in here on the side. It really gives it that fall country look. And then I'm going to take this little pumpkin, I'm going to tuck this in here with lots of hot glue so it really stays on there. This has more of a foam feeling, so it adhered really well. I didn't need to stick a skewer stick in it or anything. And then the last is adding on this bow, and it's ready to be displayed as a good reminder in my home. I love large home decor items, but what I love even more are the small details to decorate my home. We're going to be using these random items, some drop cloth fabric, some of these little wooden spools, some of these shish kebab sticks, some buttons, just a bunch of random things. To start off, I'm going to be using a water-based stain using brown and a little bit of black mixed with water all over these wood pieces. I get my little wooden spools from Hobby Lobby, but I know the Dollar Tree has been carrying more and more wood things, so I would not be surprised if they didn't start getting some of these soon there. What we're going to do is we're going to take those shish kebab sticks that I get from the Dollar Tree. We're going to break them down to 3 different heights and glue them inside of the string spools. Glue them down in there so they're nice and straight. Add in as much glue as you need to without making it be messy with the hot glue. And you're going to see that they are tall, medium, small. These 3 different heights are going to be housing 3 different flowers. To create the flower, we're going to use the drop cloth fabric or whatever fabrics you might find at the Dollar Tree. They have a whole bunch in their craft section that you can use. I cut out 3 different size circles to start. Then I moved on to some strips. These are going to be the leaves on our flowers that we're making. And then I came back in with 1 more small circle. Here are all of the measurements you're going to need and how many of them each you're going to need. Pause the screen, write those down if you're planning on making these. Once all of my circles were cut out, I'm doing the 3 larger circles and I'm just snipping in a little bit at different depths. Some are shorter snips, some are longer snips, and some are a variation of both on the 3 different flowers we're making. Now I'm moving on to painting them. I'm just using a paintbrush. I'm going with a mustard yellow flower, a really warm rustic pumpkin orange, and then I'm going to keep that 3rd one a neutral, just drop cloth tan. Those 1-inch circles, I am adding on the color as well to the 2 of them. This is going to be the center of the flowers. Now you can see that I'm crumpling up the edges because you want them to have that rustic look. And for the green strips, I'm just pinching it in the middle like a bow tie pasta noodle, and that's going to create a lot of texture. For the flower that we're not going to be painting, I'm just using some hairspray to stiffen it up. You can also use some starch if you have that on hand. You could also use some Mod Podge if you have that. Once everything was dry, I decided to beef up the bottom of my string spool just a little bit more by adding on a button, a large button that had a flat side. I'm using E6000 to glue those together, and once that was nice and cleaned up, I'm just going to set it to the side to let it dry. Once they were dry, we can start assembling our flowers. Friends, these things come to life so quickly and they are so adorable. I want to make so many more of these. I had so much fun making these, and it really is just pennies to make this. I'm sure you all probably have all of these random scraps in your craft room, and just watch what we're going to create with this. It's so fun and cute to decorate your home with. Now I am just gluing the back and the top of the flowers together. Then I'm bringing in the center, and before I glue on the button, I added some glue in the center of the flower, some glue on my leaf. I'm going to just put that right on there, add on my button, get all that in place, and then for the leaves, I'm going to take some of this twine, and I'm doing like a crisscross wrap around the stick so that it's twined on there nicely. I'm going to tie a nice tight knot and then tie a bow on top of that.
Now I want to make sure the bow doesn't come untied. I'm going to put a tiny bit of hot glue right in the center and then tie my bow so that it glues and holds it in place so it can't come untied. Look at how cute they are. I was so happy with these when I got to this point. Now I decided to give a little dovetail cut to the edge of the leaves. I just thought that was kind of cute. You can do whatever you want for your leaves. And now, because I can't help myself, I'm going to put the tiniest itty bitty button in the center of the bow. And these are ready to now decorate your home with. Aren't they so cute? I was so excited when I found this beautiful frame with this artwork that goes so perfect with the colors I'm doing in my own home for the fall season. So first I started by just dusting off the frame to make sure everything was ready to be painted, and then I'm going to come in with some white paint and just simply do a couple of layers on it to make sure that it has a very nice coat. Now I'm going very cautiously and carefully around the fabric part of the frame. I loved that neutral tan color and I wanted to make sure I kept that intact. So I'm just taking my time with my angle brush going around it. Now I love projects like this because you can take old artwork and give it a brand new look by just painting the frame. Now I'm going to make sure that it's dry before I do my second coat to make sure it's really dried and really saturated with the white. And now I'm going to come in to give it that farmhouse look. I'm going to take my sandpaper and very lightly sand certain edges of the frame as if it looks like it had been worn for some time. After that, it's ready to be displayed. Look at the before and after by just painting the frame white. It really did transform this artwork.
For this craft, I'm going to be using this meshed wired basket, this candle stem holder, this foam block, the fabric, and the florals. Everything is from the Dollar Tree except for the fabric. I get that from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to adhere this basket right onto the candle stem holder. I'm using some E6000. I put some on the candle stem holder and then on top of the basket to kind of bind it all together. And then I'm bringing in some hot glue for the long-term, short-term hold while everything dries. I put it off to the side and now I'm going to work on my florals. I like to always cut them apart because I just feel like when you cut them apart, you can really play with them and make them look like a wild garden, a big bouquet of flowers. It looks more natural to me. I'm just snipping them all apart. Dollar Tree has some fantastic florals. I will say I do not like that they're charging $1.75 for these florals, but they still are one of the better deals out there for florals. I do like to also pick up florals from Hobby Lobby when they have their 40-50% off coupons. Those are my, well, not coupons, they're sales that they have. Those are my favorite deals. I love those. I always pick up florals around that time, but all of these florals are from the Dollar Tree, and they're so beautiful when you bring the creams, these golden yellows with the red tones and that citrusy green. They're so pretty. I poke them all into the foam, and now I'm going to just wrap some fabric up around the foam block, and I just set it right inside so that way I can switch it out with different florals for different seasons.
we are going to be using this candy corn piece. I had a video come out just the other day where I made this, and I'm going to link it at the end of this video so you can find it really easy, and down below in the comments. This is the video where I made it. I had an extra one left over, and I never want to waste something that cute, so we're going to turn it into a decor piece with just random scraps of things. So I've got a frame, I've got some fabric, and then I've got this scrap piece of drop cloth, and then some twine. Now I'm going to create a stain. This is how I always create my water stains. A little bit of black paint, more brown paint, mix it together, and I'm going to dunk that candy corn right down in there because I want it to have a rustic, distressed look. Now, if the stain is too dark to your liking, it's no big deal. You're just going to add some water and you're just going to rub that in and use paper towels to pull up that extra color. If it's still a little too dark, then just add a little bit of soapy water, not too much, to get it to the likeness that you are going for. So you can see here I played with it a little bit and I got that distressing where it looks distressed, but it's not too much. And as it dries, it lightens up more and more. And here's a trick. When I was drying my candy corn with my heat gun, if you want to have a couple little burnt edges, don't start a fire in your craft room. I'm not recommending that, but you can hold it close for a few seconds. Make sure there's no sparks, no embers that are catching onto the fabric, but just warm it up just a little bit and it'll make the edges look a little toasty and a little more distressed. But again, be wise, don't burn your fabric where it causes it to catch on fire. Now for the frame, I just glued the fabric right to the backer of the frame. I popped it back in, and then I'm now going to glue down my dried candy corn piece right onto that frame. This is turning out so cute. Just wait until you see the final project. It's so fun. Now that extra piece of that drop cloth fabric, I'm going to stamp right on it with my letter stamps. I'll link these stamps or something similar to it down below in my description box. I love a text type font. So I'm just stamping that right onto the cloth. I'm using an acrylic block and acrylic stamps so that way I can see through and be able to stamp a couple times to make it as dark as I want. Once I had everything stamped in place, I cut the fabric down to look like a little tag that you would see, like a price tag on something. And I'm going to just smush it all up. Make sure your ink is dry before you do that. And then using the Crop-A-Dile, because this is what it was actually designed for, is to work with brads and eyelets. I punched a hole from the top part that I normally use to punch through metal and wood. I punched a hole and then I switched around my eyelet setting on the middle joint. You can see here where the middle joint is. And then I clamped down and smushed my eyelet into place. These eyelets, they are on shoes where your shoelaces go through them, but you can buy them as craft supplies. They have them at tons of craft stores. Now I'm going to just glue that tag down into place, and I have this straight pin that has this darling star on it from back in my scrapbook days. They still sell these. You can get them, I think, at Hobby Lobby. I just put a straight pin through it with a little star in it. I'm going to snip down some twine once I tied a bow, and now I've decided to make it a little bit more rustic because I wanted to go with that look. I'm just adding on some brown paint and some cinnamon to create a little bit of a rusting effect on the frame, and it really does just tie this whole look together. Tap off all the extra cinnamon and it's ready to be displayed in your home. This DIY has actually been a pretty popular one. I've seen a lot of friends working with these pumpkins, but I wanted to show a more neutral look and something that I like in my own home. I wanted to make these for my house, so I thought I would share them. So I'm going to take one of these velvet pumpkins. I'm popping out the little faux stem that's in it and off the fabric that was wrapped around it. And then I'm going to take some of this white nautical rope, and we are going to simply just put it all over the pumpkin. Now, a trick with this nautical rope, I like to squeeze a little bit of glue and then I twist it tight, and that's going to keep it from unfraying later on or while you're working with it, and it's just going to keep it looking nice and tight and how it's supposed to be looking. And then at the bottom of the pumpkin, you're going to put a big dollop of glue, spiral it around, and continue on. Now, the trick to make this look really high end is you want to keep pressing the rope together so there are no seams and there are no little spots where you can see the inside of that pumpkin that we're using as the form to wrap our rope around. That truly is the trick, whether or not it looks store-bought or not. And then once you get around to the top, you're going to notice that the smaller pumpkin needs about 1.5 of the nautical ropes, and the larger pumpkin is going to need about 2 full ropes. And then once I've got it all the way spiraled around the top, and this texture just looks so pretty, you could do this with so many different things, so many different types of ribbons and ropes. But when you get to the very top, you're going to want to start coiling it in really tight, continuing to push that rope down. And then as you get into the center, you're going to go ahead and cut it. Now, you could put back the original stem, but I thought it would be really pretty to bring in some of these little log pieces that they have in their floral section at the Dollar Tree. And then you're just going to make sure you get that nice and snug in there, add in your hot glue, and then pop it back in. And the two of these side by side are so cute. Total cost to make these were about $5, maybe even a little bit less. And I just love how these both turned out.
I was online the other day and I saw this really expensive mirror and I thought, oh my word, I could totally make that with this serving tray from the party section at the Dollar Tree and one of these round mirrors. All we have to do to get the look of this high-end mirror that I saw is paint the tray black. I did a couple of coats of it. I would recommend using a chalk paint, or you could also spray paint it if you wanted to. And then once I did a couple of coats of that, I went ahead and let it dry really well. And now we're going to just simply attach this mirror right onto that serving tray. I'm using E6000 and hot glue on it. And then this particular mirror that I saw had a little bit of distressing on it, some rusting to it. I ended up seeing it, by the way, on Antique Farmhouse. It's where I see a lot of my ideas. When I see things really overpriced that stores put out there, you can make it so much more affordable for your home and get a beautiful farmhouse look. I'm just adding on some brown paint and some cinnamon to get a rusted look around the rims. And you go as heavy on this as you want. You cannot do the cinnamon trick at all. It's up to you. But the mirror turns out so beautiful, and it's such a substantial piece to put on your wall that has a beautiful farmhouse look. Now I'm just adding on some twine onto the back so I can hang it up. And I always like to secure it with a little bit of extra fabric to really lock it into place.
This DIY is going to be using this little hat from the Dollar Tree. It's a witch's hat and it's the most adorable size. I love that it's not too big and not too small. We're going to start by removing all of the tinsel off of this hat. Once you've removed everything, you're going to notice there's all these little bumpies that are all over it, and we're going to just snip those off. I would recommend using some pliers that can cut them off, some wire cutter pliers that will be able to cut them really easily without having any issues. Once you get it as smooth as you can, we're going to start with a base fabric. I'm going to be using this felt from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to hot glue it all over the hat, making sure that we have our first layer on it. This is very quick. You're just basically wrapping it and cutting off any extra that you don't want, that isn't matching the shape, and then gluing down the things that need to be glued down. So you can see here that I have some extra at the bottom, and I'm just going to take my scissors, snip away the extra so that way we have a clean line around the cone. Now we're going to go ahead and take some white burlap, and I'm going to just simply wrap it around the same exact process. And you can see why having that bottom felt piece underneath was really important, because it's going to allow it to look white underneath versus being able to see all of those lines that were originally on the form. Then I took some more of that felt. I cut out a large circle, making sure it was large enough to be able to pull up around the brim of the hat. Glued that all into place, and now I'm coming in with a long strip of the burlap. I'm going to do a really cute ruffle on it. I'm just kind of zigging and zagging back and forth until I have gotten a beautiful ruffle coming off the brim of the hat. And I'm going to do 2 layers of this ruffle because I just think it looks so full and beautiful. Now this is really easy to do. I'm not even pleating, I'm just kind of gathering and kind of bunching it up onto the hot glue. And I'm using these finger protectors that they have at the Dollar Tree. Whenever I work with burlap, I do use these because the hot glue can seep through the holes of the burlap. Then at the end, you're going to cut off the extra, fold that last of it underneath, and then tuck it and glue it into place. Now we're going to create this part around the base of the hat, and we are going to wrap it around, and it's going to be a little bit loose, and that's okay because we want to have a little bit of a ruffle effect on that as well. So you can see here I cut off the extra, and I tucked the extra piece underneath this flap that's coming around the whole thing. And I'm just going to glue that right down into place, and that creates the cutest little finish on the side of the hat. I love how that turned out. Now we're going to take the yarn that I picked up from the Dollar Tree as well, and I'm going to just start to spin it around the middle of that fabric, and I'm going to just keep playing with it, gluing it in little spots here and there to hold it into place. And then once that's tied and glued down, I can start embellishing. I'm going to put on some different buttons that are peachy colors and orange with white stars, and then a darling little spider that's black on it. I think this project turned out so adorable, and I hope you will give it a try.
The Dollar Tree had this beautiful sign, and I wanted to spruce it up with an easy to do craft project. I found these 2 metal wire baskets. I have 7 of these longer painter sticks, as well as a whole bunch of these thicker craft sticks. I'm going to take those 7 long painter sticks, and I'm going to line them all up so that we can turn it into a big board. And then I'm going to take these larger craft sticks, and I'm going to cut off the rounded tip at the ends of them, and I'm going to glue them onto the back side of these painter sticks. Once those are glued in place at the top, in the middle, and the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and move on to painting it. And I really like to put a lot of these at the back because it really helps support it. You can add wood glue if you would like as well, but the hot glue dries really quickly. Now I'm going to paint the entire thing black. You can paint it whatever color you want. That's the best part about paint. Customize it to your liking in your home decor. And then I'm going to just do a couple of little holes that I'm going to be drilling so that I can put my baskets on. I'm lifting up my palette that we just made onto some of the little wooden crates the Dollar Tree has, just so I don't go through my table. And then I'm going to use some zip ties. I'm going to come in through the back, loop it around the basket, come back down through the hole, and then I'm going to zip tie them all together. This part's really easy. You might be able to use a crocodile on this, but the only problem is I don't think it's going to reach in far enough, which is why I use my drill. If you have a big bite, which is the longer extended version of a crocodile, you could use that probably. So I'm just going back down in with these zip ties. This project is super quick, super easy, and it has the cutest look when it's done. I'm zipping the back of them, cutting off the extra, and then flipping it back over. I did add a little bit of black paint into the holes once I drilled, just so that I didn't see any of that wood. I wanted it to all be black and neutral. And then up at the top, easy peasy, we're going to add a lot of hot glue, center on our apple picking sign, and it's ready to be used to organize things in your kitchen. This project is super simple. We're going to take this tray outside and we're going to spray paint it white. We're also going to be using some of these pumpkins, and I'll show you what to do with those in just a second. Once the paint is dry on your tray, go ahead and dry brush on some distressing as much as you would like, or not at all. Distressing is not your thing. That's the thing I love about projects, is that we can take an idea and then jump forward with it however we want in our own craft rooms. So I hope that this inspires you to just have fun with it and make it your own. Now I wanted a little bit more texture, so I'm going to sand those raised bumps at the edge of the tray. And now we're going to take one of our kitchen steak knives and we're going to cut down the pumpkins half or 3/4 of a way. And then we're going to start kind of positioning them. So now that they're flat, it's going to allow us to make it look like a patch full of pumpkins. This part is so fun. You're going to be able to customize it however you want. Once you have the positioning and the different sizes that you want, you're going to go ahead and start gluing them down into place. Now I'm going to play with mine a little bit more. That initial pumpkin, I decided to cut it down so it's a little bit shorter than the white Cinderella pumpkin, because I wanted them to kind of come down at an angle. This is why I said this part is so fun, because you can customize it to however you want. Then you're going to add a whole bunch of hot glue so it stays on there nicely. Glue those down into place, and then once you've got all of that glued into place, locked in, you're going to create the bed that the pumpkins are all sitting in your little patch. Add some more hot glue and come in with some Spanish moss coming around the bottom to conceal where you made all of those different cuts. And you can see here that I added in a whole bunch of stems into the pumpkins. Once all of that is done and glued down, we're going to go ahead and take one of these wood cutout from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to do the thankful one, and you're going to see initially I painted it brown, but when we finish it's actually black. I felt like it needed more of a contrast farmhouse vibe to it. So I went ahead and glued that down, and now I'm going to come in with some of this bead garland, and I'm just going to coil it, glue those into place. And then at this point I decided it needed one more small pumpkin and a contrasting color, so I came in with an oranger pumpkin that's tiny. And then, like I said earlier, I went back and painted it black so it had more of a farmhouse look to it, and it had that contrast where it stands out even more. So I'm just tapping that paint on gently, and in the end you have such a beautiful sign to display in your home.
The Dollar Tree has a lot of these gift boxes, and I wanted to turn them into something special that you can use throughout your home for extra storage, and it still looks really pretty for the fall season. So I've got these 2 different sizes. I've got some of these little metal pieces. I'll link all this stuff down below in my description box, and I've got some fabric. To get started with our box, I'm going to put glue all over the top lid, and then I'm going to use my brayer and push that all down into place so it's nice and smooth. And then I'm going to cut a circle around with that extra fabric to get rid of it and glue that edging down. I like to pull the edge down around the lid because it has a nice clean finished look. And then I'm going to come in with a band of fabric, gluing that into place, pulling it nice and tight, and going all the way around the lid. When I get to the end, I'm going to have a nice finished look. I'm just going to fold over this tiny little flap and glue that into place so that it has a completed look for the lid. Now when we do the actual box itself, we have to be careful because these lids are very snug on this container. So what I do is I do the same thing. I start with the bottom, cut a circle, glue down the sides, but when it comes to gluing on that band of fabric going around it, I put the bead of glue going along the bottom, and then I zigzag the middle, but I avoid putting any glue on the top where the rim is because it will cause it where the lid will not want to go back on. Pull it nice and tight, use your brayer or your hand or a popsicle stick, whatever you have on hand. And then you're just going to rub that all into place so it's nice and smooth, and then just keep gluing all the way around until you get to the end. Go ahead, cut off the extra, and you can make it as long as you want to go down into the box. Put your glue on the inside of the box and then pull your fabric down, which is going to have a much smoother top so when the lid goes on, it doesn't hit any added width in there that the lid's not going to let it slide over. So the fabric on the lid, it'll allow it to slide, but if the glue's in the way, it's going to have a hard time to close it. So you can see here I have a nice tight fit, but it goes on nicely without it having any issues of being able to take it on and off. Now, I went ahead and covered the fabric on the other one just to speed up the interest of time for the video, since I know you're all busy throughout your days. I am now taking the larger one, and I'm going to show you how these little librarian index card labelers, whatever we want to call these things, we'll just call them a label tag. You can tell that they're flat, and I bent it so it would fit the rounded box. Once it was bent in place, I marked my holes, and I'll show you in a second how I make my hole cuts. I marked my holes with a marker, cut them, and now I'm going to be able to create what I'm going to put inside of the metal tag holder. And I'm just using a piece of drop cloth. I've got some stamps here that I'm stamping on some random numbers, nothing in particular, nothing special really. I'm just stamping a whole bunch of numbers, but you can put whatever you want on this. And then once everything was stamped, I cut it down to size by just doing some simple trims, and then I'm going to glue it inside the metal frame versus gluing it on the actual container. It'll allow for things to line up nicely, and like if you were to glue this tag onto the actual box, you might glue it wrong and then the tag goes on wrong and then it's just frustrating. So I like to glue it to the metal label tag. I'm going to glue that down into place, and then I will punch my brads through. So I'm going to show you on this smaller one, once I have those holes marked, I use my X-Acto knife, and I'm just going to do a little crisscross cut into it. This is going to allow your brads to go down in there and lock everything into place nicely. Now here I am adding on the smaller metal tag, and I'm just going to glue that right into place, and then I take my brads and I put them through the holes that I made through the tag metal piece, coming all the way on the other side, and we're going to open up the brad legs, flatten them down nice and flat, and then lock them into place with a little bit of hot glue. Now this is the reason why I didn't finish the inside of the box. If you want to complete the box, I wouldn't do it until you glue down these brads in there, and then you can line the inside of the box however you want, as nicely as you want, because now these brads are locked into place and they're not going to come off. For the top of the smaller one, I decided to add a handle. This is optional. You do whatever you want for your craft projects. That's the whole point of me sharing these. I want you to make them the way you want them to be for your home. But I'm just giving you fun ideas to play with, and I always have the feeling of we could stop there, we could take it a little bit further, which is what I'm doing. I'm adding on a brad, a larger brad, to go through a hole that I created on the top. I added on some E6000 verse, and you saw me dunk it in to the brad fits inside of this little knob. I twisted it all around in there. I got the brad into the lid, and now I'm adding a little bit of hot glue to hold it into place while that E6000 dries, and I'm just going to squish it all into place so you have a nice lid on the top of this. Again, this is optional, but I just wanted to show you, look at how fun to add these little pieces, and it has such a pretty rustic look. Once they are all put back together and they're stacked on top of each other, this is such a cute way to organize things for the fall season. The Dollar Tree has these round plates at their kitchen section. I picked them up and I was so bummed when I got them home. Something happened where they cracked in transport, but no worries. I can still work with it and have a way to conceal it. I took them outside and spray painted them all orange, and now I'm going to trace them onto 3 different scrapbook papers. I'm cutting inside of that pencil line about a 1/2 inch all the way around the whole border of that pencil line, so that way it's a little bit smaller than the plate and it still has that spray painted orange rim around the plate. I want the circle to lay flat on the flat part of the center of the plate, not coming up the ramped side. Once I had all of my papers cut out, I'm going to add on some hot glue and add in my circles. This part is so easy and it takes no time at all. Now we're going to bring together all the plates. I am adding on some glue, and then the mustard yellow is going to be the center plate. We are making some darling pumpkins that can be hung up on a hook somewhere in your home. I ended up gluing some more glue on the back for some more support. And now I'm just going to use my crocodile to punch 2 holes so I can add some wire, twist it in place, and then thread on a whole bunch of white beads. Once the beads were on to the length that I wanted my wire to be for the handle, I thread into the other hole with the wire, and I'm going to twist that in place. Now I have kids. I don't like people ever getting scratched by things. And I always like to take my wire at the very end of twisting all the way around, and I like to use my needle nose pliers to just really tighten that wire in place so that nobody can get scratched on it. Now for the plates. I'm going to add 3 sticks with big globs of glue because we're going to add on some moss next. And I'm working quickly so that way I can utilize this glue as much as I can. I'm adding on the moss, tapping it into place, and then I'm going to come in with as much greenery as I see fit. You play with this because the options are endless with what you want to put. You can add some flowers, some leaves, some foliage. I did that on the 2 outer pumpkins, and the center pumpkin I'm going to tie this really pretty lace ribbon. Again, I get from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to tie that into place, cut off the tails if they're too long, and then add on a couple more leaves that I had sitting around, all those little bits and bobs that we sometimes hold on to in our craft rooms. These kind of projects are great to use up crafting supplies that you just hold on to on your craft table.
I love these round mirrors that they have at the Dollar Tree in their home section, but I wanted to turn it into something a little bit different. So I took it outside, spray painted it orange, and we're really going to play with this frame. I have this gorgeous calendar that they came out with for 2026. The most beautiful prints are in this. I'm going to rip out the November month, and I'm not going to use all of it. I'm actually going to save part of it for another project on another day. I'm just going to stick it back in the calendar when it's done. But I'm going to create a new backer for the frame. I just traced around the circle, cut it out on a piece of chipboard, and this is the chipboard that's inside the calendar that it comes with. I'm going to put some glue on that, and then I'm going to center on this house with this road. I really wanted to get this part, and you can see that there is still this very much so huge usable piece on the other side. I will use that on another day here on my channel. Don't forget, by the way, to click that subscribe button if you haven't, and click those notification bells, and make sure to check out the gallery over on my channel, because sometimes there's weird things going on with YouTube. Sometimes they don't send out notifications. Once I got everything all locked into the frame, now we're going to play with the frame. I decided to bring on a very dark chocolate brown, and I want the orange to still be popping through. I don't want to cover it up. I want it to look very vintage rusty. And we're going to add on some cinnamon and just keep playing with it until it has a very beautiful antique vintage look. Once all the cinnamon was dried and in place, I'm going to go ahead and add a backer on. I'm taking a piece of fabric, swirled around some glue on the back, and I'm just going to push that right down on there. And I'm going to trim right around the rim of that frame. Now at this point we want to be able to hang it up, so I'm going to add on this sweet little ribbon on the back so I can hang that up in my house. And then up at the top, friends, I forgot to show this part, but I took my sanding block and I started to peel back some of the cinnamon, some of that chocolate brown paint to reveal the orange. When I lay it flat, you'll see it. But at this point, I'm adding on a stick at the top and some boxwood. It was kind of tricky trying to hold everything because the frame kept wanting to roll off the table. So I'm having to hold it all in place. I add a pine cone, some moss. I'm just adding on things that feel very organic looking. And that's it. I think it turned out so pretty. What do you all think?
For this project, we are going to be taking these little buckets or potting pots from the Dollar Tree. They have these around springtime, and I've been holding on to them, and I thought I could turn this into something really cool. So we are going to make a mini urn that you would see out in the front of a porch. I thought this would be so cool. So we're using some E6000 and some hot glue, and together these make the cutest little urn, and we're going to make it look more like a cement or concrete urn. I thought that would be really pretty to do that. So once those are all glued together and they're nice and set and hard, then we're going to take some white paint and come in and give it a quick coat of white paint. Now I did this because I wanted to allow this wood filler, this putty that you can get from the Dollar Tree, I wanted to give it something to bond to hold it nice and together. And I went all over the whole thing, creating a lot of depth and texture. This is what's going to make it look like it's cement or concrete, where it's a nice beautiful texture on it. Then we're going to come in with a bunch of different tones of gray until we get the desired look that we want. You're going to add in some darker, some lighter, and then at the very end you're going to bring in the last, which is white, and you're going to lightly dry brush all over it. Once that's all done, I sealed it with some Mod Podge to make sure nothing chipped over time and it stayed nice and strong and sturdy, looking like it's concrete. And then I'm going to come in and add my piece of foam, push it down into place, and add some hot glue. This is going to allow it to stay in place if it ever gets knocked over and things don't fall apart. I like my stuff to just be nice and sturdy whenever I make things. Now I'm going to take that really whimsical, dainty flower that they have at the Dollar Tree. I stuck that in first, and then I'm adding in this really pretty leaf pumpkin option they had at the Dollar Tree this year. I loved these. I thought they were so cute, and when you cluster them together, they look like a mini tree. I thought this was so fun because when I brought all of them together at the base and wrapped it with twine, that became the look of a trunk, and all together it just looks like a mini tree inside of this urn, which is so cute to put on a table somewhere in your home. So make sure you wrap your twine nice and tight, and then at the bottom make sure you add some glue so everything holds into place. And then you're going to take some of this moss that they have, and you're going to just add in some hot glue and keep massaging it in. Make sure you use a popsicle stick so that you don't burn your fingers. That's what I like to do whenever I get into tricky parts so I don't hurt myself. And you're just going to keep massaging it into place so that you get it nice and packed in, and then you're ready to put it out for decor.
Sometimes even the cutest projects are so simple. I found this darling little wood box in the crafter section at the Dollar Tree, and I am going to take that plus this little stick, some paint, some ribbon, some moss, and we're going to turn it into the cutest little pumpkin box. You can put candies in it, you can use it to hold jewelry, whatever you want. Now I'm going to paint the inside and the outside of the box. Because I didn't have the color that I wanted on hand, I just took the brighter orange that I did have and I mixed it with some brown to get the perfect pumpkin orange. I'm just going to lightly brush this paint on. I don't want to lose that wood texture coming through. I really want that paint to absorb into the wood so that it has a very earthy look to it. That gives it such a beautiful, cozy fall look to this box. Now I'm just taking some sandpaper once it's completely dry, and I'm bringing back those corners and edges to give it a farmhouse feel. I'm going to hot glue on this twig. I'm adding on even more glue that comes up onto the sides of the stick so that it's really locked into the fiber of that wood. It's going to help hold it on better without having to bring out a drill and some supportive sticks. And while the glue was hot, I am adding on some moss to conceal it because we don't want to see the hot glue. That kind of takes down the quality of the project we're making. And then I'm just going to toss the rest back inside the bag. And this is one of my favorite new techniques I've come up with here in my craft room. I love vintage ribbon when it looks old and wrinkled and well loved. So I am just taking my heat gun and this ribbon I get from the Dollar Tree. I'm kind of chasing it a little bit. It's kind of funny. It's kind of wiggling around. Maybe if I taped it down, it would be a little bit easier to work with. But I'm just gently rubbing my heat gun over, and you can see that it's crinkling up and turning into a beautiful vintage looking ribbon without the cost and price of a vintage ribbon. I am now tying it into a bow. I'm going to snip off the length that I don't want because I don't want it to compete with the box being able to open and close. I'm going to add some glue onto the stick, and then I'm going to just simply attach the bow. This is the cutest, easiest project. It's so relaxing to make it. I hope you give this one a try. This tray was so popular at the Dollar Tree once upon a time, and I'm going to bring it out for today's craft. I am going to paint the whole thing black. I'm giving it 2 coats. I'm using an acrylic paint, but I would definitely recommend using a chalk paint or even a spray paint. My weather was not conducive to work with spray paint on this day. It was too humid. The paint would have taken forever. But I painted mine with a flat acrylic paint, and it actually did really well. I didn't have any problems with it. So you could use acrylic if you want to. Now I'm going to just lightly sand it down on the corners. I wanted all of that detailed work on the tray to come forward to show a little bit of that gold. And when I went to scratch that part right there or rough it up, you could see that I had orange that I was sanding from a different project, a little orange pumpkin box. And it ended up coming off on the tray, but it just dusted off. It's no big deal. So I'm just going all around the edges, sanding, roughing it up a little bit, giving it a farmhouse look. And then I'm also going to take a piece of fabric that I cut down to size to fit perfectly on the bottom of the tray. And I'm roughing the sides up so I can fray it just a little bit so that it has a really beautiful textured look to it. Very cottage style, very farmhouse cottage. I'm going to glue it down into the tray. And once it's all glued down in, I'm now going to paint a word on it. Now friends, I don't know if you have ever painted words on your craft projects before. It is one of the most relaxing, therapeutic things to do, is to paint words. I love doing it. I get really calm. My breathing slows down. I'll put on a Hallmark fall movie, or I'll put on some relaxing music, some jazz music in my craft room. But before I always get started, I like to sketch out all of my letters to make sure they're spaced nicely, and that will keep me from feeling frustrated if things run out of space. I've had that happen before. It's really important to always sketch out your word, and I always write down the first 2 center letters and work my way out from there on the sides to make sure everything fits. Now I just wanted to do a quick check-in with all of you. How are you all doing? Can you believe that it's even fall? I cannot. I cannot believe that we are officially in fall. This year has flown by. How have you been doing with your family and your home? Have you had any time to craft? Have you had any time for yourself? I know that this year has been a lot of big moments for our family where there was not a lot of time for myself, and I'm trying to find those little moments to breathe and get things done and feel productive, but also still enjoy life. I'm really grateful for crafting because I feel like this is that area where I slow down and make things that are fun. So I hope you're getting to do that in your own home. Let me know down in the comments, how has this year been going for you? Can you believe it's fall? It's pretty crazy that it's already fall. Now what we're going to do, that the letters are all painted on, I'm going to let it completely dry before I move on to the next step. I don't have to do the next step, but I really like a farmhouse cottage look in my home. So I'm going to make sure that it's completely dry, not using a heat gun, because that will cause the plastic on the tray to crack. I don't want that to happen. I just used a fan that I have in my craft room. I'm going to come in with my sanding block. I'm just going to rough up the drop cloth fabric just a little bit, and that's pretty much it, friend. An easy, relaxing project that you have to try. It's a fun one to do. I love a kitschy wall art piece, especially if you have a gallery wall in your kitchen. I found this scalloped wooden box from the Dollar Tree, and I have one of these apples on hand. I'm going to paint the box black, and once it was painted all around, front, back, sides, I let it dry, and then I took my sanding piece of paper or a sanding block, whichever you have on hand. The Dollar Tree has a great sanding block, but on this day I'm just using a piece of sandpaper. I'm going to rough it up so that we can get that farmhouse look, and it really does help elevate and lift the scallop so you can see it nicely. I'm just going to simply do a quick sand all over it to show that wood coming through and gives a little bit of a distress look. And then once it was completely sanded the way I liked, I'm going to take my apple and carefully cut down into the apple so that way I can get a flat surface because I'm going to glue it into this little box. I remember seeing decor pieces like this back in the 60s and 70s from like home decor magazines, and I think it's so cute. I want to bring it back. I do. I want to bring it back. So I'm going to glue this cute little apple right inside this tray. Wouldn't this be so adorable next to your cabinets or in a little gallery wall artwork that you had going on in your home? Super cute, super simple to make. I hope you give this one a try.
You can't have a fall video without a pumpkin in it. So I wanted to share how I'm going to update the look of these DT pumpkins, and I'm simply going to just pop out those top little pumpkin stems because we're not going to be using those. And then I'm going to put them on a shish kebab stick, and this is going to allow me to paint them without putting my fingers all over it and taking forever to paint it. I like to do this tip where I just like to poke a shish kebab stick in it, and it really lets me get that painted desired look without my fingerprints being all over it. Now I'm using a very taupey white color on this because I wanted it to have a concrete cement look. And then I'm coming back in with more of a brown, very soft tan brown, and I'm coming into the inner bumps of that pumpkin. Now the trick to get that really pretty concrete look is you go inside of that crack of the bump, and then you come back in with the lighter color on your finger and you massage it all into place, which will create that shading and that tinting. Once you're all done doing that, go ahead and take a stick from outside and you're going to just cut a hole into the pumpkin that's the size that you will need. Anytime I ever work with foam, you will see that I get that off my desk immediately because it goes everywhere every single time. It's such a messy thing to work with. And then I'm just going to hot glue my stick right down inside, add a little bit of this Spanish moss from the DT, and then on my smaller pumpkin, I decided it needed a leaf. So I'm going to put on this beautiful olive green maple leaf, and really this is just going to complete that look. I'm only going to put on one because I love the other one just being with the stick and the moss. For this DIY, I am using 3 of these signs from the Dollar Tree, some drop cloth, tan fabric, and then a rope. I'm also going to bring in a floral pick in a little bit, but I'll show that a little bit later on. I'm going to start by removing the things off of 2 of the pumpkins, the metal leaf, the burlap bow, and then the twine little band that was on it to help hang it up. I laid it on the piece of drop cloth, traced it, and now I'm cutting it so that I'm left with the shape of the pumpkin. And I'm going to go ahead and add that right onto the pumpkin and glue it into place, and I'm doing that to 2 of the pumpkins. Once I have that fabric all glued into place, I'm going to flip them over, and we are going to be gluing them together with this rope. Now this is the rope from the Dollar Tree, and I'm untwining it so that it will have 3 different strands. And I'm just going to glue it into place on the back, making sure all of them are the same length so it hangs evenly. Once I have those all glued on the bottom, I moved on to the top, and then any excess that I didn't want, I went ahead and cut it off. And then I came up to the top and also put a piece of rope at the top to be able to hang it up. Back over on the front side, I'm going to go ahead and add on some greenery, this beautiful warm toned orange sunflower, and then I'm also going to add on some greenery to the orange pumpkin as well that's in the middle. It's really simple. You just lift up that metal leaf and glue it down into place, and then that will complete our look.
I was ready to create a new wreath for my front door, and so I pulled a whole bunch of random florals that I've picked up at the Dollar Tree. These apples, I buy them in a kit from Amazon. It's the best price for faux apples. I will make sure to link that in the comments and in the description box. I'm going to be using a Dollar Tree wreath form that is a 20-inch wide. This darling apple sign, some of these ribbons from the Dollar Tree, and then some of this ticking stripe fabric I get from Hobby Lobby, as well as 2 zip ties and some craft sticks and a whole lot of hot glue. All right, to get our project started, we're going to punch some holes into the apples so that way we can mount the apples onto this craft stick. This is really going to help it stabilize in the wreath. The apples are very slick and they will just come off with hot glue over time. I like to start my wreath forms by taking some of this burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree. I always twist around that first area, glue it into place, and then use my little clamp to hold it there while it's drying so I don't burn my fingers. And then I'm going to just simply coil this burlap ribbon all the way around the wreath. And when I get to the end, I'm going to basically twist it off, add some glue, and then clamp it back down again so I can cut it. That way I don't burn my fingers because the glue will seep through the burlap ribbon since there are very small holes within the ribbon. Now we're going to do just one more prep thing. I'm going to be taking some of this ticking stripe fabric. This is optional, but I really love having a very full wreath whenever I make them. I think when a wreath looks kind of skimpy, that's when you know it's kind of a lower quality wreath, and I really like to beef mine up quite a bit. So I'm taking some of these fabrics. They are about 7 inches by 1.5 inches wide and long. I'm going to put those off to the side, and now we're going to add on our Apple Farm Fresh sign. I am using my Crop-A-Dile just to punch an extra hole so that way I can zip tie it to the sign and then I don't have a whole bunch of glue all over this. It just keeps it nice and clean and tidy. Now for those fabric strips. I am going to just simply do a single tie knot right onto it, and I'm going to bring in all of my greenery around it. This really does thicken up the wreath, and it has such a pretty look with that ticking stripe in there. You'll see at the end how cute it looks all together. Now I'm coming in with some colorful fall leaves. I'm bringing in this beautiful cranberry, almost a burgundy red leaf, as well as an orange leaf. And you can use whatever colors you want, but I really wanted this wreath to be so warm and remind me of the fall season. I love the bright colors that fall brings. We live in the state of Missouri, and here we have all of that beautiful foliage come through. I love when the colors are so bright when I drive down the street. Oh, it makes me so happy, or I go for my walks in the morning. Now I'm coming in with some very whimsical wispy flowers, some more leaves. I'm really just packing this thing in with all sorts of different foliage and these white large sunflowers. I think the sunflowers definitely are a statement piece, and they match the sign. Now for the apples, you can see that the hot glue is dried. That stick is really going to allow it to stay down in there and hold nicely into the wreath so it doesn't just pop off. The slick surface with hot glue just is not going to work together, so it's best to punch a hole and use a craft stick. And then you're just going to sneak that down in there, and these are on there very snugly, and it's not going to have any issues with coming off. Now I'm going to add in just a few more things, looking for any bald areas where I might see some of that burlap ribbon. I don't want to see that ribbon. I want to make sure I'm just adding in. And doesn't that ticking stripe fabric look so cute in there? I just think it looks so perfect for fall. And any more little areas, I'm bringing in some of these tiny florals from the Dollar Tree. Again, all of these florals are from the Dollar Tree. The only thing not from the Dollar Tree is that fabric and the apples, but everything else is Dollar Tree. So just keep filling it in until you get it to a point that it just looks so lush and beautiful. And this is such a relaxing project.
I'm basically doing this while I have some music on in my craft room. I actually was listening to Harry Connick Jr. He's one of my favorite jazz singers. I had that playing while I was crafting this wreath, and I felt so relaxed, and I had a candle burning in my room. It was actually an apple and fir candle, which I love. Now I zip tied on my red gingham ribbon, and then I'm going to come on top of that with some hot glue and a brown burlap ribbon. And to finish off the look of that ribbon, I'm going to add in one more sunflower right into the center, and then bring in some more greenery, tucked in another little green leaf down underneath that sunflower. This is really going to be such a substantial wreath on your front door. I hope you give this one a try. It is so cozy for the fall season, and I love the apple theme. That wraps up today's video. Thank you all so much for being here. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and click the subscribe button if you're new. If you are returning, thank you for being my friend. It always means so much every time you leave a comment, click that thumbs up, and just in general, come and hang out with me. Thank you for doing that, because it just makes the world more fun when we get to have something in common like crafting. Now I'm going to recommend this video right here. If you missed it, it was from the other day. Don't forget to go and check that one out, because it's a fun one too. And until the next episode, bye friends.